As usual, this is Amin, and I'm joined by some guests today who will introduce themselves in reverse alphabetical order.
Oh, damn it.
Hi, I'm Michael, or Mordian on the forums.
Hi, this is Lee. I'm Lord Manderbly on the forums.
Hi, this is Greg. I'm Claudius the Fool on the forums.
And we may be joined by Amber again later today. Hopefully she'll jump in. Today we're continuing our survey of the Martin Sphere. Specifically, we're doing Sandkings, which I believe is in the Georgeverse. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe so, because they've got Baldur and everything, so...
It definitely is.
We're doing a spoiler full review of Sandkings, which I believe is most easily available in Dreamsongs right now.
Yeah, but it's one of his most famous short stories. So you just search Sandkings, you'll find it.
Has anyone read the graphic novel version of it?
There's a graphic novel?
Yeah, I just bought a copy of it. I'm waiting to get it done. I have not read it yet.
I want to see
Just
it.
text for me, yeah.
It seems like one that would fit the visual medium quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a story where everybody will picture things differently, I'm sure. Like, I don't know how you guys pictured the Shambler, but that was the one thing that I pictured, this, like, sad-looking bulldog kind of thing. But I definitely want a Shambler.
I have it as sort of like a Lovecraftian Shoggoth sort of a thing. just smaller
that's
and
how I
cuter.
pictured it.
Yeah.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to go through it, have a spoiler full chat, but we'll start off with our lemon cake score. What did you guys think?
I'd give it a 4.5, 4.75. It's one of my favorite short stories. It's like a brilliant mixture of like horror and sci-fi, and it's just so much fun.
Oh, I don't know if we're going in reverse order again. I actually gave it a...
middle to the beginning and then to the end.
It's a bane of your existence, is the ordering.
Yeah, I know. Just the alphabet. I actually gave it a 5. It's as close to a, not say perfect, but it's the most fun I've had reading a story in a long time. At no point was I ever like taken out or didn't want to put it down. I read it in one sitting, and it just like you said, Lee, it was horror, sci-fi, a little bit of everything. But I loved how he made you care, hate Cress, and then kind of feel bad for him. And then I still don't know if he was actually the hero of the story or if there was a hero. But I loved it, and it was so much fun. And I want to read more in the Martin verse. And I've only read 3 or 4 so far, but I'll give it a 5. I'll be that guy.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I sort of almost don't have anything super specific to say. I liked everything that he did. Basically, it was it was a good story across the board.
Just want to say that Catham Lane was the hero of the story. Just
right. that puppy.
Yeah. So I'd say probably like a 4.5 or something.
I think I'll give it a 5 as well. I think I gave 5 to Unsound Variations, and this is like that one of my favorite short stories. I really enjoyed reading it the first time, and I still enjoy the rereads. So I'll put it up there near the top of his game for short stories.
Definitely.
Okay, well, let's just basically just jump and go through it. Like, if you circled anything, we can talk about it. But I do want to give a bit of a backstory on the story. I think I'm reading Wikipedia here, and it says that the story is partly influenced by his fellow student Martin knew while he was at university at Northwestern, who had a piranha tank and would sometimes throw goldfish in between horror film screenings into the tank. So that inspired the story. And apparently he was planning to do multiple Woe and Shade type short stories in different planets, but didn't follow up. So that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That does make sense. They have the feel of like something that would easily sort of extend into as like a minor supporting character.
So they don't show up in any of the other Georgeverse stories, as far as you know?
No,
I don't recall reading them. It would fit if they were in like Meat House Man and they were expanding into that market or something. I wonder how that guy feels to be like, the inspiration for the story, because the character Simon Cress isn't exactly the best of characters. He's like a ready-to-be sociopath, basically. Like, I think he's an example of, like, if you tolerate animal cruelty, one of the results of that is, like, they'll move on to humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think if even the name Cress meant anything, because I know Nancy Cress is a pretty popular sci-fi author. They're contemporaries of each other, and they've been published in anthologies. But as far as I know, I didn't find any real crossover between them personally. But it's not that common of a name. But that was the one connection I was trying to make. But she writes very similar, a lot of space opera stuff and some more, personal, emotional sci-fi stuff too.
Like, if George would write you into one of his works, would you like take it to be even with this kind of character?
I'd take it.
Yeah.
What if you were like the guy in Meat House Man?
He's,
No.
I guess, maybe more pathetic, but also more sympathetic, so...
That's true, yeah. So Simon Crest is very well-to-do.
Yeah, he seems to have a ton of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think once or twice it mentions that he has to take care of some sort of, vague business, but basically he seems a lot
He's
of
the
money.
main stockholder of the company in Meat House Man.
Yeah.
That's where he gets his money from. But he fits that type of character.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know what he does. He could just be some copyright law attorney who's just hyping up how exciting his job is, But he does know a couple assassins and erasers type people.
Yeah, like it seems like
More
10
than
years
that.
ago he had to use one. I don't know if it was for work or if it was just he was pissed off at somebody. But it's like he's used assassins before.
Yeah, he definitely betrays some of George's like 70s hippie dislike of men in suits.
Hi guys.
Oh, you're here.
Hey.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey,
Anyways.
After I wanted to be early, I ended up running late.
Well, just tell us quickly your lemon cake rating for the story.
I gave it a 4.75 or maybe like a 4.9. I love this story. I'd read it I read all George's stuff about a year ago, so I had to reread, and I forgot just how quickly it sucks you in and how gripping it is. I don't like to give anything a 5 because I'm just that kind of person, but I loved it.
I don't know if you heard, but we just were chatting about how the character and story were inspired by someone George knew who had a piranha tank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting that.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
You're gonna kind of wonder what kind of brain takes that and runs with the idea of having a piranha tank
yeah.
in the wrong hands, I guess.
So we're basically just gonna go through it and just like talk about things that stood out to us, and just like the Woe and Shade. It kind of had that like horror film or short story feel, but there's that store, that creepy store that you go in.
Such
Yeah.
a cool visual. It would make a great like Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah,
It
You
was.
could have done this
it was
one.
Outer Limits episode.
Outer Limits, yeah.
And it was a dual episode, but it just they messed with it. They should have just stuck with the original story,
Yeah,
and they.
I've never seen it. Why is it terrible?
I mean, most Outer Limits stuff are terrible in that good, it's nostalgic way. Like I remember like the newer color version of Outer Limits, and it has some of my favorite, episodes, but they're all very campy and, But I don't recall this one off the top of my head. I probably saw it, but I didn't make any connections between that and this because I don't remember Beau Bridges doing anything about Sandkings in that episode, but I'm sure there were.
What?
I think it caught the terror of the book, which is good. I mean, but it's just. I don't know. It felt like it would have just been easier just to be closer to the original material. It's so good. It was just they picking up all this side stuff that wasn't relevant. Because that's the way it is. Even though it is in Martin's Georgeverse, it doesn't really matter that it is. It doesn't really. You don't really know. It's just some guy in the planet. Like you can just do that. You can do that as a standalone episode.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we know about Asgard?
Isn't that where Rob and Laia came from in Song of Liana or Song of Laia?
Is it?
Isn't that
Well, they were
there? I know
from
they came from Baldur.
Baldur. Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Baldur.
Okay.
They'd referenced Asgard a couple times, or I know it has been referenced.
Good. That's the background on it, but there's not much else relevant to it, I guess.
That's obviously a Norse god-centric planet, or that's where they took their names from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Simon Crest has already been into this kind of like animal fighting, or just having well, not really. I guess he's just having exotic animals. He's into that. He needs something to spend his money.
Well, he's clearly kind of a sociopath. Like
He takes to killing very easily.
the way you treat animals is kind of one of the first signs of a person's like ability to feel empathy, and he does not come away with like great marks.
Yeah, it's like Joffrey cutting up kittens or cutting open cats.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like most of his friends have much empathy either. It's the ones that do that kind of stand out, and they're ostracized for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and his whole thing, he doesn't even care about the animals. His whole thing is finding something to entertain his creepy, shallow friends.
Right.
I mean, and I think more than entertaining his friends, he likes watching the animals fight. I think more than just. I mean, obviously he is interested in trying to shock and excite his friends, but I think it's personal more than that too.
When he goes in and they say Shade does not seek customers, I didn't even really think anything about that the first time I read it. It's just like a simple line. But.
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted, because when I reread it, there were all these little references to, not Shade necessarily being a Sand King, but like the the workers that come in. Like, did any of you pick up on anything weird going on your first time through, or was that all just a big reveal? Because I didn't pick up on that at all.
Yeah, it was a reveal later. It never occurred to me initially.
Well, because they're different. They're not exactly the same. The form of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But he had said how he never saw any life form remotely like it and didn't know what. And he picked up on it, but
I was new to short stories at the time, so I didn't really expect this kind of reveal stuff.
Yeah. I wonder what Shade looks like now.
Maybe he's at the house. He's the Wowan Shade.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, that was what I was thinking. Is he actually, really incredibly enormous? Or does the maw eventually also mutate into another form?
Yeah, I was thinking of that, because she says he's a Sand King, so he's one of the workers, right? One of the mobiles? He's not a maw?
No, he is the maw. I think that's the terminology.
Because, I mean, her thing is it's only one creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the workers are just workers. Shade is the thing, or at least that's the way I took it. I don't know.
That would make sense, but I must have missed that.
The big insect creatures who carry everything around for Shade and Woe are the workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says the term Sand King is wrong because it's really a queen, and then he says, well, it really is just a hermaphrodite. Or it's all one thing. But the second the maw dies, the workers should die. I think there's kind of a bit of an error, and that's what happens later on when two of them die, they just die, right? But then at another point, it's when the maw dies, the workers will starve to death because they can't eat. But really, they should just die right away, and they do because they're all one mind. Right?
Yeah, that seemed to be sort of an odd continuity thing there.
Unless it was just they're just become instinctual insect, they just run without a brain. They're just
I think that Shade actually is one of Sand King, because I'm just looking at it here. It says, "Don't be absurd. A first stage Sand King is more like a sperm than an infant. Only 1 in 1,000 becomes like Shade. Adult Sand Kings are not sentimental about the maws. There are too many of them, and their mobiles are pests." Doesn't that mean that he was a Sand King that evolved into some other type thing? Or am I just completely...
he's a maw. He's a maw that maybe evolved to something else, but he's not a mobile. It's not. He's still the brain.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Oh, is he? I kind of took from it that maybe
he became a maw, or I don't know.
No,
I need an anatomy book on this.
No, even just that paragraph does say it like that. I mean, that's exactly what it means. They start out as a maw and they grow and they become something else. But that's how they start off. He didn't start off as one of the mobiles.
No, that
is his arm.
Okay.
Yeah. We keep losing Amber.
Yeah, she keeps dropping in and out.
Maybe we'll restart the call.
Also, so I was just re-looking through some of the story. Yeah. Or I guess I'll wait for Amber, but... Well, all right. And I had forgotten that he invites Woe over to the first fight. And that's sort of another point to his unpleasantness, I guess. Is that she's just look, he's dumb. You know what I mean? He's not just he's not a clever kind of Hannibal-esque sociopath or something. He's not creative or
no. He thinks
intelligent.
He is, but he's definitely not.
Yeah, he's just sort of crude and cruel.
Yeah, I like the eventual description of his portrait on the castle walls as an idiot god or a cruel idiot. That's totally what he's like.
Yeah, the Sand Kings see right through him.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's how he basically is the stand-in for this biblical Old Testament God who is literally messing with the weather, causing famine, causing to the Sand Kings as the people. Which I like how that was George's way of. I mean, he says a lot about religion in the story, but he definitely is not a likable God or a forgiving God. So
yeah, we talked about that kind of continuity error of when the maw dies, they should die right away. It could be that they would just be alive, just without a brain, but. Either way, they're done when the maws.
And I think it was just easier to give him the idea to let
kind
him
of
know
explanation.
that he was winning or whatever, that he was able to kill.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they had the Moz die at the same time. But yeah, I guess it could go either way. Either they could just kind of stumble around.
So that's pretty interesting. George is good with coming up with these kind of really alien or exotic ideas.
Oh yeah, like the Grishka. That's definitely along the lines of those. They're not your typical just creepy alien creations. There's layers to them. It's not just for the shock value. There's more going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like Amber's had to leave.
Oh, no, I'm back.
Oh, she's back. Okay, good.
An interruption. To go back to my thought from 5 minutes ago, I was just thinking about Shade. I kind of took it to mean that he was immobile, but just that once they evolve to a certain point, then they are more autonomous. But I guess that doesn't really make sense.
That's what I thought too. But at least I'm not the only one.
But it didn't sound like the Maw could, because the little guys were evolving into something that kind of did resemble him, whereas the Maw just got more and more creepy and alien.
No, he's definitely.
We never saw Shade.
Yeah. He's definitely a Maw because on very beginning when Woe shows up, you see 3 days later Woe arrived at Simon's estate with dormant Sandkings and a work crew to take charge of the installation. Woe's assistants were aliens unlike any he was familiar with, squat, broad bipeds with 4 arms and bulging, multifaceted eyes. Those workers are the workers.
Yeah, those are the mobiles.
Both of them are Shade. Like Shade is the Maw that's controlling them.
Yes.
Okay, I got that.
Those are like his fingers, basically.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like your fingers are you, but I mean, still your brain is really more you than your fingers.
Oh, you just blew my mind.
Yep.
Well, but
imagine you could send your fingers out and they could walk around and do stuff for you.
Although she still, I guess Woe talks to the mobiles and they do what she says, but I guess it's all just
they're just relaying it psionically.
Yeah. But so the question, or I mean, my question anyway, is just what Shade looks like at this point, because Woe said that they were coming, right? That Shade was going to come at the very end to clean up the mess, and so I wonder what Shade is like at this point.
It doesn't mean like he has to be like a stuck in place Maw forever.
Yeah.
Like the third form could be like a giant Titan or something that walks around. Who knows what it is? But I thought it was funny if that building was actually him. I didn't think about it till now. But what if that whole building was Shade? Like you step into Shade and because does it have a description like that? It's like the windows are misty.
Yeah,
there's a fog.
There's certainly no breathing. The way.
It was like a short.
Maybe he's better at hiding it later.
That was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside.
It hadn't been there before, too, right? He hadn't noticed the building there before.
He did say that it seemed bigger than it should have been.
And that would be that's pretty crazy if that was it. That's a question I'd ask Martin if I'd be like, hey, is the building like Shade?
Keep all these Song of Ice and Fire questions on file if you ever get them. It'd be so tough that people care.
Also I said I would have two interviews. One would be non-based and one would be Ice and Fire. So
I think from reading these stories, I feel bad that I didn't come to this stuff sooner, because this is it reminds me of some of my favorite science fiction. I always associated him with A Song of Ice and Fire, even though I knew this came later in his career. But I really wish I would have gotten into his stuff earlier, because there's so much out there now. I feel like I'm always playing catch up, or I'm not reading this stuff as it comes out. So I wish I'd done it earlier. But I'm glad that we have Dreamsongs and we have them all, mostly in one or two collections.
It's pretty easy to get your hands on most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Did we already talk about, since I missed the first couple minutes, did we talk about how stupid Kath Mullane is? If she already clearly knew what kind of person he was, one, if his thing ate your puppy, I wouldn't ever go back to any party that he had. Ever. After watching the video that he sent, why did she go to him alone instead of straight to the police?
She basically just thought he was a wuss. And she was right. He killed her by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what point was when the Maw was controlling him or influencing him, if that was when he actually killed her, or we know it was influencing him later with Lysandra, but was that something he did on his own, or did it just plant the seed and then he did it? But I think she thought he was a coward, and she.
Well, he did have to stop her from opening the dam
Yeah,
tank.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, which was a at the very least a legitimate thing for him to be worried about.
That was like the horror aspect of it, because it was so close to stopping her. Like it was cracking and stopping, and then she like got one last burst of strength.
Yeah, she was dead basically.
Yeah. She's tough though. Like, I don't know, like going into his house to shatter the tank, like that's
Yeah.
ballsy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think she just, didn't have any really good reason to actually be scared of him. And he was, a coward and weak in a lot of ways, and so.
Yeah, and from everything we've seen, we know that he always had people do his dirty work for him. So
Right.
she really would think there's no reason to.
Well, and I wonder, to totally read more into it than is there, but I wonder if she was his last chance at kind of being a real person. Like she's kind of a sensitive, normal person, and when that didn't work out, I wonder if he just like gave up and started drinking.
God, he's so much more creepy than the Sandkings are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, the Sandkings are supposed to be like have a certain like level of honor and stuff, but he messes them over.
Courtly ritual.
Yeah.
He's the one who drove them to madness.
One wonders how they originally met, like Shade and Woe.
If it was on his world or just somewhere. Woe is human, right?
As far as we
Yeah.
there's probably an arranged marriage between.
Yeah. They're lovers.
Planets.
Well, they are. I mean, they're sentient, right?
Yeah.
Well, and with the one that is set up in their shop that she's taking care of, and they're worshiping her, like you figure he must have paid an insane amount. Like if they're willing to come and clean up all this, and you imagine they still probably made a profit. I guess Sandkings must be big business.
Well, I mean, maybe.
I think the cleanup is just cleaning up a mess. They don't want Sandkings to be like deformed Sandkings to be expanding across the planet, right?
And maybe more than that, they don't want like the Balder authorities to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they're a pretty well kept secret because like he can't really find anything on him, and the guy that he has, Radek, or who's like an expert in thinks he's studying, thinks they're insects, but we're told several times that they're really not insects. They just appear to be. But they seem like no one really knows about them. That they're pretty.
And her image is serene and peaceful because she takes care of them well, and they're happy with her.
Yeah, she's the New Testament God, and he's the Old Testament God.
I would think that she'd be able to. I don't know. I mean, I guess at a certain point. Well, that's what I mean about, like, I wonder how much they were just after the money, because you would think that they would do some sort of serious screening to see, because when he came to buy him, he was so interested in them fighting. You'd think that would be like the red flag or something.
Shade is a pure capitalist. He's looking to make money. That's his plan.
Remember, they don't really care about them, so.
That's true. Yeah, they're not infants.
Yeah. Like they still want to do good business.
Yeah, and I would also imagine that, like, sure, these guys are dangerous, and the Sandkings wreck Cress, but like, if Shade sent a bunch of his workers in there, I don't think he'd have as much trouble.
Oh no, yeah, because they're huge and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, but that's what's interesting. They said like we needed equipment to bring there. I was just interested.
Yeah, I wonder what
maybe
they
just
doing.
mean. All right, so they had it installed, and then they come out, and then even early on, he doesn't feed them properly. Like he's too bored. He wants the war to start quickly. So
yeah.
I mean, we get the impression that he's pretty restless. I mean, I remember having an ant farm, and like wanting them to do stuff and just watching it wasn't enough. But at no point did I drop food and have them fight over it. It was more just to watch. But yeah, he's definitely he wants instant gratification, and when he can't have it, he's trying to create it himself.
He's pissed off when the oranges they just do like a shit job of his
they're
idol, and they don't care.
Idiot God, right?
They were always behind from the start, but you can see there's like a genetic diversity, or like even coming out of it.
Which is fitting that they're the ones that eventually, get him in the end.
So yeah, the party, and then that's when Woe comes in and she warns him that this is not the right way to go about it. And then she's gonna go talk with Shade about that.
Well, and that seems like another point where you almost wonder, like, why didn't they come in and just take them back?
Because they're insane. Or wait, sorry, at which point?
Like when she came to the party and saw that he's using them for entertainment and he's not treating them all that well.
Well, it's also, I think that, again, I was just looking at one of the last pages of the story, and she says a lot that the white maw is very unusual, that partially because of the way he injured it, and partially because of the way he treated it.
It wasn't just the lack of food, it was that stabbing that really
so like they don't usually get that big before they turn into the next stage. And I think she probably just assumed he'd call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I guess you don't assume that people are going to be psychotic.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger issue, right, is that, I mean, they didn't care about the maws and the mobiles. It was, as long as they were in that tank, everything was fine. And so, I mean, she didn't have any reason to think, like, she didn't, she was sort of disgusted by it, I think, the way he was acting, but ultimately it's sort of like whatever to her. But, as long as she had no reason to think they were going to get out and start growing. And if they got out and started growing, I think she would have been upset. Like, once they were out, then there was a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does seem to be really, like, the voice of reason, when she comes in, and she does have that kind of badass line where she says, "Look to your faces, Simon Crest, look to your faces." It kind of reminded me of Melisandre with, "Look to your sins, Lord Renly." But she, she's obviously responsible for it because she's the one who brought them in. But, she does, she says, "Let them war in their own time for their own reasons. It's in their nature." She's talking about people there. There's no reason for this crazy god to mess with the people when they're going to do all this on their own anyway. But and then it kind of goes off the deep end once they're out of the cage and they do have to come in and clean house. But she does. I think she wants the best for him, just not the best for Cress.
There's so many references to Shade. Like, he's like, "Oh, you cannot build a 10." Like, it's just like all there. The evidence is all there for him.
That's what makes it a brilliant horror story. Is that like the whole thing? Like, like really good horror. I mean, what's happening the whole time. You just kind of can't realize it.
I think Simon would like the Thraki wedding because just like there's just the one line. He's like, he considers his party's a failure unless like at least one guest walks out and like in anger.
Dungeon, I think is what he says.
Yeah. So he has war games at his place, and he keeps beating Chad Rakis, who has a gambling problem.
Clearly.
It's funny with all like the different animals that were brought over to fight the Sandkings. Like the one thing that George drew the line on showing was he wouldn't show the puppy getting eaten. It was the only one that was after the fact where we saw like the puppy had destroyed the castle, but he has no trouble showing birds and snakes and just goes, can't show anything cute actually being killed on screen. It's all got to be off screen.
He wanted to ask Woe about the Sandkings, but he just keeps slipping his mind to do so. So they put the spider in, and then the spider gets beaten. They even like have a temporary alliance against it. The
spider actually comes the closest, though.
Yeah, because it goes straight for the maw.
Yeah, we're meant to think that the maw actually ate the spider, right? It wasn't the mobiles that actually did her in, because it crawled down the hole, and that was he thought he won at that point. But somehow it had some sort of defenses, or it might have just opened its mouth and ate it.
It can take poison, apparently. Like, it can eat poison, so...
It's also... It just does... The story does such a good job of making your skin, like, literally crawl.
Yeah, so I like the world it's tough to put it in words, but the story seemed really organic. The way he wrote it, it wasn't... nothing really needed to be built on. You didn't need to know much going into it, and that made it more realistic for me. So when all this stuff was happening, it didn't really matter that it was in this crazy world with it was just about this one guy at his house. All like you said, all the little hints and everything. It's a dark story. I felt not dirty, but I felt just creeped out all the time reading it.
Yeah.
The couple shades of light, where Kath shows up, or where they talk about the puppy, or you realize that, he calls the people on his viewfinder. It's almost like, oh, we're out of this world for a second, and then we're right back into it, which is, it's like, Twilight Zone episodes make me feel that way, where you just something's off the entire time.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
No,
yeah,
it does.
absolutely. Well, and it's definitely, I mean, it's in the strangest way, it's relatable because these are characters that we've seen before. They just happen to be in this different universe.
Right.
So he keeps taunting Kath Mullane. That's like he likes to do that. And in response, she reports him to the authorities, and they send someone there who he routinely bribes.
He was so close to getting stopped right there.
Yeah. I think you guys said it right. I mean, like, he's such a despicable character, and yet when this whole thing happens, you don't really want to see him die because it's just so creepy. You want him to get away. Yeah. It's like this duel.
It reminded me of Theon. It was like he's such a douchebag, but at a certain point, nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves what happened to them. Ugh.
Yeah.
When he stabs the maw, like I hated him at that moment. I felt so bad for the maw, and then he just flips it, and you're like, oh, please save Simon.
I was gonna say for me anyway, it's not so much that I was hoping someone would save Simon. I just want somebody to fix the Sand King problem. Right? So it's not so much that I'm oh no, Simon's gonna get killed. But it's just like, oh god, now these orange ones out in the desert, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think Shade will handle it though. Like they'll check out the whole.
Find the orange ones eventually. I guess it's a little bit unclear as to which way he ran and how far away from his house.
I feel like do you think he was psionically influenced there? Because what's the odds of like going right to that house? I think he was kind of drawn in that direction.
He must have been. I never thought of that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that makes sense why he wasn't seen by Woe and Shade. He went the wrong way, like he was pulled. Like it's just like to run for 2 hours and then to go right to that house. It's just like really low odds to do that normally.
My question is, are the orange ones dangerous? Because they're dangerous to him, but unlike the white ones, they haven't been like driven mad.
Yeah, they were starved.
Well, they got hungry though. Yeah.
Like they were always the weakest ones, right? Like I think that there's psychological and probably also maybe physical damage from being starved.
Yeah, but like I don't know. They seemed like the weakest, partially because they seemed almost like the nicest of the four. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, they were kind of teamed up against by the other Sandkings before they were even out of the cage. So it makes sense that the first thing they did when they got out was just to move house, as far away from everything as possible. Yeah. I mean, and kind of when he sees them, he's like, "Oh, there's 6 kids playing in the front yard." Like it seemed like this very idyllic setting, and then, not so much. But I kind of like the idea of thinking that they were just going to do their thing and not cause any trouble. So it goes against everything else in the story.
There's not a lot of food out there though. It's desert, so they're gonna have to order in some food.
Well, and you wonder if
send those little guys to like the pizza parlor, get out some pizza.
Now that the other 3 are gone, if they would somehow fare better, or do that thing where you're weak and you're picked on, and then suddenly you're on top and you start bullying everybody else. But there's not really anybody around.
But they never ate any human flesh, so they don't have the taste the way the whites did.
Well, they ate him now though, so now they got the
and
taste.
Was the house an actual house, somebody else living out in the desert that they found and ate the people, or was that a castle that they built that he just mistook for a house?
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Yeah, the latter.
Yeah.
He had it in 2 days and was kind of crazy and just saw this. Thought he saw a nice cabin in the woods and he turned out because he did mention how.
And he certainly was under the influence at that point when he was that close. But I'm just saying, even before he was that close, he was probably kind of pulled there. Because he was just running in a frenzy. He doesn't know the direction. I think he was kind of pulled in that general direction. So he films the puppy getting killed and sends it to her.
It's horrible.
Oh, it's the whites that they all make the whites do the best job of doing the idiot god, because they're most skilled. Yeah. She comes in. She gets killed. There's like a couple of rounds where he keeps like running away and coming back and running away and coming back. Like he keeps getting his courage back.
It's the psionic stuff. I think he can't really like quite think clearly, which is the scariest part in its own way.
Well, that and the liquor. I almost felt like this was a little moral tale about drinking, because it was just so. He had to have a drink to clear his head, and he had to have a drink to do this and that, and you could see the downward spiral.
I kind of got the opposite though, because it felt like the only way to escape the psionic and being controlled was to go to drink. So it almost seemed like that was his only time where he was thinking on his own. That's just what I got out of it. But
interesting, yeah.
It's he's saying a lot. He says a lot about a lot of things in the story, but it's interesting that we could both get something opposite out of that.
And then also, I guess, just thinking about it now, when he was out, disposing of murder victims' cars and stuff, at that point, like if at any point he was going to be outside of psionic control, you would think it would have been then.
Yeah.
It is nice to have a giant volcano 7
Right?
kilometers
Yeah.
from your house that
Yeah,
you
it's
drop
super handy.
unwanted things into.
Yeah.
And to be able to just hover right up to it instead of having to walk up or drive up. Like, just
Yeah.
go over and plop it in.
Certainly convenient for the disposal of.
He just takes to like butchering up her body quite easily. He's just like, he just does it. It's like he was a step away from that.
Well, at that point, I was pretty sure he was under control of the.
Yeah, he's just right beside it too, right? And they're waiting. They're just waiting while he does it.
It's like Wi-Fi.
It's
When
like
there's walls and stuff in between, then
Yeah.
it's weaker. But when it's right there, it's getting a good connection.
All right, so they eat Kath Mullane. And then Itty is like, I guess it kind of almost is like, I mean, they're not dating, but they kind of seem like to be like this dark relationship. But he's like, now I have to dispose of her because she knows about the video. So she gets lured in. This was one of the most creepy parts because she's not even dead when she goes there.
Oh.
Like she's thrown in alive with
Screams
the
for hours, right?
yeah. He just goes up to like the sensorium and dials up the music or not TV or something to
A saucy
block it out.
comedy, I think. Yeah.
Sensoriums and joysticks. It's just TV and cigarettes.
All right, so he comes back and he wants to. Oh, the poison doesn't work. He tries to deal with them, and they're very intelligent. But it's the intelligence that's able to do it, and they're not just insects, right? They're able to ambush him and stuff. So he calls in Lysandra to deal with it.
Unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
Well, they get 2, right? So.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were gonna get the 3rd one, right? It was just that he was
Yeah.
under psi control or whatever.
I don't know. I don't know if they would have succeeded.
Well,
Well, if they burn the house down, then they would.
Yeah.
If they could start a big fire, it would have killed them all.
yeah, I think that
So-
the house burning down and then, maybe potentially lobbing explosives afterwards. I think they probably would have gotten it, but yeah, you're right. Maybe, maybe not.
I got so excited when they actually managed to kill them.
Yeah.
Because at that point you weren't sure if it could happen, like if they actually even could after the ground opens up and they're just so tactically brilliant.
Yeah, but like the lasers they were shooting were actually going for the castles, not what was underneath it. So it was
Right.
you
Yeah.
didn't think, but they didn't get them.
The second one was really easy because they just flew over and dropped the bomb on it. Like there's
Yeah.
only so much the Sandkings could do.
Air superiority, they had it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny after all the fights they did with his friends bringing in animals, that he would just think, oh, I'll just poison them a little bit. Like, as people, we think we're so superior, but he just kept underestimating them at every turn.
Okay, so when they lose some of the operatives, he's just like, is this going to really cost you? I've lost.
Still about
People
money at
is-
that point.
Yeah, I'll pay for it. It's whatever it takes.
Standards.
Yeah. So he knocks the guy in and then kills her. And then they eat them, and then he's going crazy. And then, he just keeps luring... All the people that came to the war games come in, and they all get killed.
Yeah.
It's like karma.
Yeah. He definitely is influenced when he shoves them down the stairs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because
That was a key moment. He even himself realizes it,
he went from being like, oh, it's almost over, we're going to get him, to like, wait a minute, no, let's do this instead. So,
Because they're putting the visions in his head of them coming and killing him, and he just, like, goes crazy.
Yeah.
With that, he's like, has to stop that.
Well, and it shows again, because I didn't even pick up on that until you said it, whoever said it, about being controlled by the psi. Like, yeah, there's that point where he's like, oh shit, they're psionically controlling me. But, you go back through the story and George drops these little hints like, oh, they've got this psi. And it reminds me of how I read like Ice and Fire and never pick up on any of the theories and never come up with any theories of my own, because I just read it and I enjoy it and I'm like, oh, but then there is so much that he puts in there.
Yeah. I think you mentioned that in one of the threads of things you don't, secrets and everything.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I'm the exact same way. Like, I don't feel stupid, but I feel that I miss something when I, because the first time you read, you're in it for the story. And one thing I think, like, the podcast and all the spinoffs has made me a more critical reader. I consciously try to be a more critical reader to pick up on this stuff. But still, the first time through, it's all about the story, and then you got to go back to it. But yeah, you're definitely not the only one who doesn't pick up on that kind of stuff.
So they basically keep him grounded there, like they take over the skimmers, so he's stuck. there. And he can feel the hunger.
Yeah.
It's being projected to him.
That's such a scary part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, feeling someone else's hunger, that is pretty creepy.
Yeah, and they're still carving his face on the wall right now while this is going on. They're still...
But it's almost
Yeah.
at that point, he's almost like a mascot. Like it's a threat.
Also, it's
so
all
he's
they
stuck.
know. They don't have another god to worship, so no matter how cruel he is, they still have to. That's what they put up on their walls.
He almost gets away. He could have gotten away with Jad, but he's too slow about it. He's like, "What's wrong, Simon? I don't understand." It's like just like.
Yeah, when I'm reading that, I'm like, take off, just take off. Ah, damn it.
Yeah. And then the Red Eyes jumped in and grabbed him. They tore him apart. Well, and then they're like immobile. I guess they're in transition phases when he notices that and calls for help.
Well, the strength of the psionic push must be weakened when he's not.
Oh, just that he was able to call for help.
I don't even know how much they're intelligent, but they don't cover every single action he does it. So he goes down during this thing and it stinks. There's a ghastly odor coming from the basement and there's white fungus. And it's how much of this is this true of all the moths, or maybe this one's injured that it's partly like that?
I think it's that it's injured because the orange ones he sees at the end have. I mean, it's creepy that they have his face, but they're clearly they're not hot or gross or infected or the way that those ones.
Yeah, we don't know if that was just the cocoon stage or the transformation period, because I think when he meets the orange ones, they've already passed through that stage. They're already something else now. But this had one of the creepiest scenes for me was just him waking up and seeing the one sitting on his dresser and then going back to sleep. No, please let it not be there. Please let it not be there. The awful stuff like that. That's the one scene that in my head I can just imagine waking up and just seeing this thing sitting there. Another day in hell. But, it turned out a little better for a little.
Yeah. This is something I'd want to see in animation form, just because a live action is just a bit too much for me, I think. I don't think I want to see all of this in live action. I would rather see it in animation form.
It would be so hard to do, even with the effects nowadays. It's so creepy, it'd be hard to recreate that.
So he contacted them, they're going to come deal with the cleanup.
That's another thing that just kind of has to forward the story. But if he'd have spent 5 more minutes on them, giving them more information, he never told them you need to get underground. Just right off the bat, they came and they thought they were killing the mobiles, but that really isn't they could do that for hours.
Yeah, he gave them really bad information.
Yeah.
Because if they'd known that all they had to do was kill the castle, they could have bombed them from the start.
Yeah.
And then you would have had the whole crew, and they go after the one in the basement.
Yep.
And we wouldn't have as good a story, though.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing would have happened, though. They would have killed the more efficiently outside, but then he might have still tried to backstab them. Although I guess there would have been 4 of them.
Yeah,
it would have been harder to backstab 4.
There were 4 of them that he probably wouldn't have been successful.
Yeah. He wouldn't have been as worried, too. They would have been taking them out so easily.
Yeah.
He just runs out. He doesn't take any water or any equipment or anything. He just runs out into the desert. Well, the whites are just about to wake up, right? They're just coming out. 4 tiny hands covered with pinkish yellow blood came out of the gap.
Maybe I don't want to have to see the graphic novel.
Yeah.
In my head.
I think the graphic novel is okay because I find it's easier to see it in that kind of form than if it was a live action type of thing. But yeah. He runs out there and then he's planning to have revenge. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna get some other eliminators and send them after Woe and Shade. Gets there and then you get the creeping end when they get taken by the children and taken into the house. And now they all have his face. Now is it all the Sandkings would end up like that, for their mobiles? They would have had his face in the final stage.
Yeah, I thought that's weird too. Or I guess that's not the final stage, right? That's just the second stage.
It's the middle one. And yeah, Woe says that they take different shapes depending on their needs. It's interesting that that's the one they take, though.
Well, what did you guys think was actually going to happen to him? Because just with the way things are going, you expect them to just straight eat him, but he's still their god, right? So are they going to take him captive?
I think they're going to eat him. They're hungry.
This is my body. Take of it. Eat of it.
Yeah.
I forget who it was saying that they were in the desert and might have trouble getting food. The oranges made the transition to the second stage, which requires a huge amount of food on their own in the desert.
Well, that's why I was wondering if that was a house, in fact, and not a castle. Like if it was a house with people. Yeah.
And they could have just eaten a bunch of the mobiles, right? They did that at one point when there was no food. Woe told them that they'll just eat, a certain amount of the mobiles to make up for it.
Like they were grabbing like dead mobiles and taking them over to eat them. Like,
or just killing a portion of their population so the rest can thrive.
That doesn't seem like it would be energy efficient to be eating your own like it's not going to do it. I think your own mobiles.
Yeah.
I think they eat other mobiles from other.
Yeah.
Get bogged down in the science.
Yeah, but the house is built of crumbling sand. Like I think they built the whole thing.
There wasn't
there wouldn't be a house there in the middle of the desert. Like it doesn't make sense that there would be.
Well, unless it was some crazy, rich, creepy psychopath who wanted to.
But it wouldn't be a shabby house built of crumbling sand.
He did have a big rock jock problem, so maybe they ate all the rock jocks. We don't know how big they are or what they consist of. But I did feel bad for the shambler, like when it was being carried past him in pieces. Yeah. It was like, I hope he died, but this was he's just trying to get by, and he just looked at him like, you did this to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my final note. I don't think he went there by accident. I think his path was influenced by that.
He had to have been learned.
Yeah, I like that idea. I hadn't thought of it.
So what happens after this point? Woe and Shade show up and they clear out the whole area?
I think they just bombed his house, and then they go back and take care of the orange ones. Maybe take him back and sell him to some other poor guy.
Yeah, the orange ones might be able to be still dealt with. So they're saying there's 3 stages and they're in the second stage? Is that what it is right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is possible in the third stage they might not still be a house anymore. It might become something that it can move.
More mobile.
But it probably would. Well, I mean, I guess how did they get Shade? Yeah, it would be a big change to suddenly change from a house to something that can move.
Yeah, it would be odd. I mean, that's I don't know.
That's how. What does that work? Like the evolution wise, like it makes sense they would just be permanently sitting there, and the mobiles go around and do that. But
just another mark of a good story that it leaves you wanting to know more. Like it had a good punch gut in the ending with the surprise. Oh my god, I'm getting eaten, but it didn't wrap it up nicely. Which
I'm going to go with that Shade is the building theory. I like that theory. And he can just control everything. He's in the third stage, so he doesn't stink or whatever. He's not unhealthy.
That makes sense.
And he has like the fog and stuff. Yeah.
Well, so in that case, why did Woe say that she and Shade were coming?
Well, it just means like his fingers are coming, like his mobiles.
Maybe
she's
in her pocket.
He doesn't come before though. I guess that's true. He doesn't come.
Pretty specific that he doesn't. Shade doesn't.
Yeah, but they needed equipment to move that house there.
Yeah, so that's
just like a
possibility, right? I thought maybe
they need a giant skimmer to pull. Yeah, they're putting him on a truck like Optimus Prime. They're gonna drive him over there and they.
And then you wonder if the fourth stage is Grishka.
It all goes back to Grishka.
It's funny, as much as I like this story, I feel like I don't have as much to say about it as I do some of his others.
Yeah. I think we covered it pretty well.
It's just like it's so straightforward in its own way. Like it's well done and intricate and well crafted, but it's not like it doesn't delve into themes as deep as like some kind of loneliness or a song for Leah.
Yeah, there's really just fear and horror, not actual feelings that have a lot of depth.
Just the whole religion, just what responsibility does a god have for its creations? That's sort of Woe has one view and he has another on that. But it makes you think about how different people can treat, view their god differently. Like the Oranges did kind of view him as not benevolent, but he's not as much of an evil guy, when the others, went the other way. But I liked how it made you think about just creation in general and interpretation of where you came from.
In relation to the when Woe was talking about it earlier, it says in the tank they won't develop, they won't go larger, they won't shed this thing, so they will never go past the first stage. Like if they're in the tank, they're basically it's basically like, as it said, the analogy of being sperm. It's like if you threw sperm together and had a war. Is that being cruel to the sperm? Like they have no they have no knowledge, right? They have no real sentience.
Sperm are
That's
adorable.
The way that the Sandkings. That's what the Sandkings view it like that. Shade views them like sperm.
Which would actually be a super cool pet. Like, that would be so entertaining. If only he didn't need that.
I mean, the Sandkings are, as I said, they would just have their wars with like alliances and stuff, and it'd be interesting to see. It'd be like those turtle wars that George wrote about.
Yeah, exactly.
They have betrayals and...
Yeah, but the Sandkings themselves don't have like an end game. You know, if that's all they're doing is just making one alliance, like they're not really, that's just their nature to constantly do that, but they're not really trying to achieve anything, right?
They won't get out of the tank. I guess at some point there might be one winner, but it'll just be stuck in the tank, just sitting there and eating. Like,
Did you read I didn't reread the little intro to the story, but I remember him saying something about he had planned on doing a bunch of Woe and Shade stories and never did. And I thought that would have been really cool because they're just so kind of on top of it and badass and know everything about everything, kind of. I think they could take stories to a lot of cool places.
Maybe we will. Maybe the next anthology will be like, I don't know, squishy aliens or gross alien collection, and there'll be a Woe and Shade story in there.
Oh, Lord.
He's got a lot of projects going on. We know that.
well, somewhere in Haviland Tuft's database, there's cells for Sandkings. In there, right? He's got everything in that. Well, it's good. It's good to chat about it. Thanks for coming back to continue this exploration of the Martin sphere. Yeah. What are we doing next is a good question.
Someone posted in, I think it was for the Song of Laia that we did, that he listed all the books that are the stories that are in the Georgeverse. So I'm not sure which ones are. This one is, we don't know chronologically, but this was written later. But I don't know if you wanted to go in any type of order or just jump around.
I guess we can do some of the Georgeverse ones. Yeah,
let's do the Georgeverse one next. Those are often my favorites.
Well, in Sandkings, by the way, it's listed. It won both the Hugo and the Nebula awards. So this was big.
Yeah, this is one of his most.
1979.
Would we want to do? We could do in 7 Times Never Kill a Man. I like that.
I don't think I've read that for a while.
But we could also do Night Flyers or.
Night Flyers is a long one. I don't mind talking about it though. Like that is the longest one of the ones we've covered.
Which is the one with the religion stuff? The Space Pope or something?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I would do that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's called.
I don't see that in the.
Yeah, it's not on
Dreamsongs.
this. It's not on this list. It's in Dream.
With Morning Comes Mistfall is a good one.
Yeah,
we could potentially pair that with a second one because it's not that long, but that's one I want to do. Let's do Morning Comes Mistfall.
Deal.
Plus something else maybe. Good. All right. Well, we'll see. For our listeners out there who are following along, we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Pleasure recording with you guys as always.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we going to do any after show game on this thing?
Maybe what creature you would like?
Sandkings for everyone.
No, thank you.
Not scorpions.
Yeah, I agree. The one who breaks the cage.
Yeah, marry her.
I like Woe. I'd marry Woe.
Yeah, everyone else.
I want a Shambler Doodle. It's a cross between a Labradoodle and a Shambler.
Yeah, if you actually took care of it, it'd be a cool pet.
It managed to climb to the top of his house and eat a hawk, so you know it's pretty badass.